My name is Elena Morales. I'm 35 years old. 20 years ago, my parents disowned me for getting pregnant in 10th grade. 15 years old. February wind. One backpack. My father stood in the doorway of our brownstone, telling me I was no longer his daughter. That same night, they signed papers removing me from everything. Their will. Their trust. Their future. Me and any child I might ever have. I kept those papers. I kept all of it. For 2 decades, I was a ghost in my own family's history. They told everyone I'd gone to Spain to study art. They built their spotless reputation on the silence of the daughter they erased. Then last week, they showed up at my front door. Smiling. Polished. Desperate. They said they'd heard about my son. They said they wanted to meet him. They said they'd been telling people about him for months, their brilliant grandson. The heir to the Morales legacy. They offered me $250,000 to bring him to their 40th anniversary gala in Manhattan. They had no idea the grandson they'd been promising to their most powerful friends didn't exist. And what they found instead would unravel everything they'd spent a lifetime protecting. If you think you know where this story is going, you don't. Subscribe to Women Reddit Stories right now, because what happened next changed not just their reputation, but mine. Brooklyn, New York. February 2005. I was 15 years old. A sophomore at St. Agnes Preparatory School. The youngest child of Javier and Lucinda Morales. On paper, we were immaculate. My father owned a private financial advisory firm in Midtown. Morales Capital Management. Established 1989. My mother chaired 3 charity boards and hosted fundraisers in our dining room beneath a chandelier that cost more than my first apartment ever would. We attended St. Bartholomew's Church every Sunday, front pew, always coordinated in navy and cream. My mother believed photographs lasted forever. She curated us accordingly. But every family has its ranking system. Mateo, my older brother, was 21 and studying corporate law at Columbia. The golden son. The future managing partner. Isabella, 19, was pre-med at NYU. Elegant. Obedient. A daughter who never contradicted our parents in public. And then there was me. I was what my mother once called the unexpected extension. Born when she was 36, 8 years after Isabella. I don't think she ever forgave me for altering the symmetry of her life. The signs weren't loud. They were quiet, constant adjustments. Family portraits displayed in the hallway somehow always featured Mateo's debate trophies and Isabella's science awards. My artwork remained in drawers. Dinner conversations revolved around internships, LSAT scores, medical school interviews. When I mentioned placing first in a regional writing contest, my father would nod and say, "That's good, Elena," before returning to discussions about market volatility. I learned early to occupy less space. To need less. To want less. My father repeated the same sentence at nearly every holiday gathering. Reputation takes decades to build and seconds to destroy. I didn't understand then that he was preparing for me. I met Daniel Cruz at the public library on Eastern Parkway. It sounds small. Ordinary. But that library felt like oxygen. It was the only place I could exist without comparison. Daniel attended Franklin High. Public school. Which in my parents' world might as well have been another planet. He was 16. Worked part-time at his aunt's bakery in Flatbush. He had warm brown eyes and a laugh that felt like sunlight through stained glass. He found me crying between the history shelves one afternoon after my mother forgot to pick me up from debate practice, again. "You okay?" he asked gently. No one had asked me that in a long time. We dated quietly for 3 months. He was patient. He was kind. He made me feel seen in ways that startled me. Like I had dimension. Like I wasn't a background character in someone else's perfectly staged life. April 3, 2005. I remember the flickering fluorescent lights in the bathroom of a Dwayne Reed on Atlantic Avenue. The pregnancy test balanced on the sink. 2 pink lines. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I told Daniel, he didn't run. He didn't accuse me. He just held my face and said, "We'll figure this out. You're not alone." Part of me believed him. But I knew my parents. I knew their first question wouldn't be, "Are you okay?" It would be, "What will people think?" I told them at Sunday dinner. April 10, 2005. 7:18 p.m. My mother had made roast chicken with rosemary. My father was discussing a merger deal. Isabella was describing a shadowing opportunity at Mount Sinai. "I need to tell you something," I said. The room stilled. For faces turned toward me. "I'm pregnant." My mother's wine glass tipped, red spreading across the linen tablecloth like a wound. My father didn't blink. "Who is the father?" His voice wasn't loud. It was colder than that. "His name is Daniel Cruz." Silence. "Cruz," my father repeated. "What does his family do?" "He works at his aunt's bakery." "He's in school." My mother's expression shifted from shock to calculation. "You will not keep it," my father said. "Javier," my mother started. "She will not destroy everything we've built." He looked at me like I was a liability. "Not a daughter. If you continue with this pregnancy," he said evenly, "you are no longer part of this family." By 9:02 p.m., I was standing outside our brownstone with a backpack and a duffel bag. Cold wind cutting through my sweater. My mother held the door. Not my father. My mother. Mateo and Isabella watched from the upstairs window. Neither of them came down. I walked 3 blocks before I allowed myself to cry. Daniel met me outside the bakery. He wrapped me in his hoodie and held me while I shook. "We'll make it work," he whispered. We had $420 between us. A borrowed car with a cracked windshield. And no plan. That's when Mrs. Patel saved me. She lived across the hall from Daniel's aunt. A retired elementary school teacher. 67. Soft-spoken. Observant. She'd seen me arrive with swollen eyes and a suitcase. "You can stay in my spare room," she said. "As long as you need." 3 weeks later, we moved into a basement studio in Queens. $600 a month. Pipes that rattled like distant thunder. 3 days after I left, my father mailed certified documents. Disinheritance papers. They stated that Elena Sofia Morales forfeited all rights to the Morales estate and that the family bore no legal or moral responsibility for her or any dependents thereof. I signed for the envelope. I kept it. I didn't know then that 20 years later, those papers would become the reason my parents would beg me for a grandson who was never born. Gabriel Daniel Morales was born on December 12, 2005, at Elmhurst Hospital in Queens. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Dark hair plastered to his tiny head. 10 fingers. 10 toes. His father's dimples. My stubborn jaw. He came into the world screaming. I remember thinking, good. Be loud. Don't let anyone shrink you. The first 4 years were survival stitched together with exhaustion. Daniel worked double shifts at the bakery, waking at 3:30 a.m. to knead dough while the rest of the city slept. I studied for my GED between feedings, rocking Gabriel in a second-hand bouncer we found on Craigslist. We lived in that basement apartment with peeling paint and a single narrow window that showed nothing but the ankles of pedestrians walking by. When it rained, the pipes groaned like they were remembering something painful. Money disappeared as fast as we earned it. Diapers. Formula. Metrocards. Electricity. There were weeks when Daniel and I ate rice and eggs so Gabriel could have fresh fruit. I mailed a birth announcement to my parents. No response. On Gabriel's first birthday, I sent a photograph. Him in a blue sweater Mrs. Patel had knitted, cake frosting smeared across his cheeks. Silence. By his second birthday, I stopped trying. Daniel and I never married. We talked about it sometimes, in the abstract way young people talk about futures they assume will wait patiently for them. When things settle, we'd say. When we have money. When life calms down. Life did not calm down. On October 8, 2009, a delivery truck ran a red light at the intersection of Northern Boulevard and 82nd Street. Daniel was driving home. The police officer who knocked on my door said the words instant impact like they were meant to comfort me. Daniel was 20 years old. Gabriel was 3. The bakery's life insurance policy paid out $15,000. That was the total monetary value assigned to the boy who once found me crying between library shelves. I was 19 years old. A single mother. $15,000. No degree. No family to call. I didn't collapse. I didn't have the luxury. Grief became something I folded carefully and tucked into the corners of my day. I let myself cry only after Gabriel fell asleep. I started doing freelance administrative work online. Virtual assistant jobs. Data entry. Anything that could be done during nap times. Mrs. Patel watched Gabriel when I had interviews. "You're stronger than you know," she'd say, pressing containers of lentil soup into my hands. In 2011, I enrolled in community college part-time. Business administration. 2 classes per semester. I brought flashcards to the playground and quizzed myself while Gabriel climbed the slide. Somewhere between spreadsheets and late-night accounting homework, I realized something. I understood numbers the way my father did. I understood the risk. Investment. Projection. But I also understood what it meant to have nothing. That difference mattered. By 2013, I had an associate's degree. By 2015, a bachelor's in finance from City College, paid for with grants, scholarships, and sheer refusal. Gabriel started kindergarten that fall. He was shy. Thoughtful. Observant. He asked once, "Do I have grandparents?" "Yes," I said. "Where are they?" "They made a choice a long time ago." "Was it about me?" "No," I said firmly. "It was about them." I never lied to him. But I didn't poison him with bitterness either. In 2016, I got my first real job at a boutique investment firm in Manhattan. Entry-level analyst. Long hours. Sharp suits I bought on clearance. I learned quickly. I worked harder. By 2019, I had clients of my own. In 2020, during the chaos of the pandemic, while markets fluctuated wildly and clients panicked, I stayed calm. I understood instability. I'd lived it. I began attracting attention for that steadiness. In 2021, I launched my own advisory firm. Morales Financial Consulting. The name was intentional. I wasn't reclaiming my father's empire. I was building my own. The first year, 4 clients. The second, 12. By 2023, 28 active portfolios and nearly $9 million under management. Gabriel was 17 by then. Tall. Lean. Quiet like his father. He had Daniel's dimpled smile and my father's analytical mind. He loved robotics. Spent weekends soldering wires and building prototypes at the kitchen table. He once asked, "Why didn't Grandpa want you?" I held his face the way Daniel once held mine. Because he cared more about how things looked than how they felt. Gabriel nodded slowly. "That's sad," he said. "Yes," I agreed. "It is." Spring 2024. A business magazine published a profile on me. From teen mother to financial founder, Elena Morales rewrites the narrative. The journalist spent 2 days interviewing me. I told her about being disowned. About Daniel. About building something from nothing. I did not say my parents' names. I did not name their firm. I did not give them that. The article mentioned my son, now thriving in his senior year of high school. That was all. I didn't think much of it. Until last Tuesday. October 15, 2024. 6:36 p.m. I had just pulled into my driveway in Westchester. A modest colonial house with a maple tree in the front yard and a mortgage I paid myself. There was a black town car parked along the curb. New York plates. I felt it before I saw them. My parents stood at my front door. My father's hair is gray now. His posture slightly bent. My mother's face held careful lines softened by expensive dermatology. They looked smaller than I remembered. I sat in my car for a full minute. 20 years. No calls. No birthdays. No condolences when Daniel died. 20 years of silence. I stepped out. My father spoke first. Elena. He said my name like he was testing whether it still belonged to me. You look well. What are you doing here? I asked. My mother stepped forward. We read about your son. My heart slowed. My son? Yes, my father said. Gabriel. We didn't realize, we weren't aware. Of what? That we had a grandson. There it was. The word hung between us. Grandson. We'd like to meet him, my mother said softly. We'd like to reconnect. As a family. The absurdity nearly made me laugh. Family? We're hosting our 40th anniversary gala next month, my father continued. 400 guests. Colleagues. Clients. Church leadership. He straightened slightly. We've mentioned Gabriel. Mentioned? We may have shared that he's accomplished. That he intends to study engineering. You've been telling people about my son. Yes. For how long? A few months. I felt something cold settle into place. You invented a relationship, I said. My father's jaw tightened. We'd like you to attend the gala. With Gabriel. And if I don't? He opened a leather folder. A check. Blank. We're prepared to compensate you. $250,000. The number sat there like it had weight. You bring your son. Smile for photographs. Stay for the family presentation. 3 hours. And then? You return to your life. I stared at him. At the man who once told me I was no longer his daughter. You want to rent my child? My mother flinched. That's not. You've been telling people about a grandson you've never met. We didn't know how to reach you. You never tried. Silence. My father's voice hardened slightly. We are offering you reinstatement into the family trust. Equal share alongside Mateo and Isabella. I almost admired the consistency. Money as solution. Reputation as priority. And if I refuse? My father held my gaze. It would be unfortunate if Gabriel heard our version of events without you present to contextualize it. There it was. A threat. Subtle. Polished. I stepped closer. You will not contact my son. We simply want the opportunity to explain. You lost that opportunity in 2005. The front door opened behind me. Mom? Gabriel stood there. 6 feet tall now. Hoodie sleeves pushed to his elbows. Robotics Club logo across his chest. He looked at the strangers on our porch. Then at me. Who are they? I stepped slightly in front of Gabriel without thinking. These are your grandparents, I said evenly. Javier and Lucinda Morales. Gabriel's eyes moved between them. Observant. Assessing. My grandparents, he repeated slowly. My mother inhaled sharply, as if the word itself startled her. Elena, she began, attempting a fragile smile. He looks just like. Don't, I said quietly. Gabriel's posture straightened. You're the ones who kicked her out, he said. Not a question. My father's jaw tightened. That situation was complicated. What part? Gabriel asked calmly. The part where she was 15? Or the part where you sent legal papers saying you had no obligation to her or any dependents thereof? My mother visibly flinched. They hadn't expected him to know. I never hid the truth from him. I told it age-appropriately. Gradually. Carefully. But I never lied. Gabriel stepped down from the doorway and stood beside me. So, he continued, you've been telling people about me? My father recovered quickly. He always did. We've mentioned our grandson, yes. To who? Friends. Colleagues. Members of St. Bartholomew's. Clients. And what exactly have you told them? That you're studying engineering, my mother said softly. That you're bright. That you plan to attend a strong university. Gabriel gave a short, humorless laugh. You don't even know where I applied. Silence. My father shifted strategies. We're hosting our 40th anniversary gala at the Waldorf Astoria next month. It's important that our family is present. Important to who? Gabriel asked. To us, my mother replied. To your reputation, I corrected. My father exhaled slowly. Elena, this does not need to be adversarial. You arrived at my house with a check, I said. That feels adversarial. Gabriel looked at the folder still in my father's hand. How much? He asked. My mother hesitated. $250,000. Gabriel blinked once. For 3 hours, he asked calmly. My father nodded slightly. To attend the gala. Stand with us. Participate in the family acknowledgement segment. Family acknowledgement, Gabriel repeated. I could see his mind working. You've already told them I exist, haven't you? Yes, my father admitted. And if we don't show up? My father held his gaze. That would create questions. And that's unacceptable. Yes. Gabriel looked at me. Did they ever come to see you after you left? No. After Dad died? No. After I was born? No. He nodded once. Then I think we're done here. He turned slightly toward the door. My father's voice sharpened. Young man, you may not fully understand the long-term consequences of alienating family. Gabriel paused. He turned back slowly. With respect, sir, he said evenly, you alienated us 20 years ago. Silence settled thick and heavy. My mother looked suddenly smaller. Elena, she tried again, voice trembling slightly, we made mistakes. You drafted legal documents, I said. That wasn't a mistake. That was a decision. We were protecting the family, my father said reflexively. From what? Gabriel asked. A baby? My father did not answer. I reached for the front door. This conversation is over. Elena, my mother whispered, desperation creeping in, please. Think about what you're doing. I am. You're jeopardizing reconciliation. Reconciliation requires acknowledgement, I said calmly. Not a performance. My father's voice cooled. The gala is November 22nd. We need your answer by the 15th. I don't need time, I replied. You may reconsider. I held his gaze. You disowned me at 15. You don't get to impose deadlines now. My mother looked at Gabriel again. May we at least speak with you privately? Gabriel shook his head. There's nothing you could say to me that doesn't start with an apology to her. My father's mouth tightened. Very well. He closed the leather folder. We will expect your response. You won't get one, I said. They walked back toward the town car. The same measured, polished movements. The same careful posture. As if this were just another business call. The engine started. The car pulled away. Gabriel exhaled slowly. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded once. "Yes." He studied me for a moment. "You're not considering it, right?" "No." He hesitated. "Good." We went inside. The house felt different somehow. Quieter. Like something had shifted. That night, after Gabriel went upstairs, I walked into my office and opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. The envelope was still there. Certified mail stamp faded slightly with time. I opened it again. 3 pages. Legal language. Elena Sofia Morales forfeits all claims to the Morales estate, and the family bears no legal or moral obligation to her or any dependents thereof. Dependents thereof. Gabriel reduced to a clause before he was born. I scanned each page into my computer. Saved digital copies. Backed them up to cloud storage. I didn't know yet what I would do. But I knew this. If they were going to weaponize reputation again, I would not stand unarmed. A soft knock at my office door. Gabriel stood there. "Is that it?" he asked quietly. "Yes." He walked in and sat across from me. He read the first page slowly. His jaw tightened slightly at the phrase "any dependents thereof." "They really wrote that," he murmured. "Yes." "And now they want me on stage with them." "Yes." He looked up. "I have an idea." I raised an eyebrow. "What?" He leaned back slightly. "If they want a grandson so badly, maybe they should get one." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said carefully, "they've already created a version of me in their heads. A polished, impressive, reputation-friendly grandson." He paused. "What if we let them introduce him?" I studied my son. "You're thinking something." "Yes." "What?" He smiled slightly, Daniel's dimple appearing for a moment. "They want a show," he said. "Let's give them one." I didn't answer immediately. I thought about the gala. 400 guests. Church leaders. Financial clients. Live stream. Public presentation. Reputation takes decades to build and seconds to destroy. My father's words echoed in my memory. Gabriel leaned forward. "They think they can control the narrative," he said quietly. "They always have. Maybe it's time they don't." I looked at him. At the boy I raised alone. At the young man who understood more than I ever wanted him to have to. "We don't do revenge," I said slowly. "I know," he replied. "We do truth." I exhaled. "I need to think." "Okay." He stood. At the door, he paused. "Mom?" "Yes?" "If you decide to go," he said, "I'm coming with you." The house fell silent again after he left. I stared at the scan documents glowing softly on my screen. 20 years. Silence. Erasure. And now. A public stage. They wanted a grandson. They wanted validation. They wanted applause. They had no idea what they were about to get. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same image, my father standing at a podium beneath crystal chandeliers, speaking about legacy. Legacy. The word had always been currency in our house. By morning, I knew one thing clearly. If I went to that gala, it would not be to play a role in their version of history. It would be to correct it. The next afternoon, I made a phone call I hadn't made in years. "Mrs. Patel?" I said when she answered. "Elena." Her voice still carried the same warmth it had 20 years ago. "Is everything all right?" I hesitated. My parents showed up. Silence on the other end. "They want to meet Gabriel." Another pause. After all this time? Yes. For what? A gala. Reputation. A public display. Mrs. Patel exhaled softly. Some people never change. I need to ask you something, I said. That night, when I came to Daniel's aunt's apartment. Do you remember the date? Of course I do, she replied without hesitation. April 10th, 2005. You're sure? I wrote it in my journal. I closed my eyes briefly. You saw me arrive? Yes. With my bags? Yes. And you let me stay? Yes. I swallowed. Would you be willing to verify that? Officially. If necessary. She didn't hesitate. For you? Always. I thanked her and ended the call. 2 pieces of documentation. The disinheritance letter. A witness. It wasn't about destroying them. It was about preventing them from rewriting it again. That evening, Gabriel knocked on my office door. I did some digging, he said. On what? The gala. He sat down and opened his laptop. The event is being live-streamed on St. Bartholomew's website. They're calling it a celebration of 40 years of faith, family, and financial leadership. I almost smiled at the phrasing. Of course they are. There's a segment labeled Family Acknowledgement. That's where they plan to introduce me. I leaned back in my chair. Of course. Gabriel scrolled further. 400 confirmed guests. City council members. 2 state senators. Several major clients. Press. Press? I repeated. Yes. A society columnist from the Manhattan Ledger. I felt the shape of it forming. Public narrative. Public correction. Gabriel looked up. If they introduce me first, they control the framing. Yes. But if we speak first, they lose it. He nodded. You taught me something, Mom. What's that? Silence protects the wrong person. I stared at him. I had said that once years ago, when explaining why I never kept secrets about our past. I hadn't realized he'd held on to it. I picked up my phone. There was one more call I needed to make. It rang twice. Elena, a familiar voice answered. Matteo. There was a sharp inhale. He hadn't heard from me in nearly 2 decades. Is this really you? He asked. Yes. A long pause. I've thought about calling you so many times, he admitted quietly. You didn't. I know. Silence stretched between us. I'm not calling to revisit everything, I said calmly. I need information. About the gala. Yes. You know about that. They came to my house. Another pause. They told you about Gabriel. Yes. Matteo exhaled slowly. They've been telling people about him for months. How long? Since the magazine article last spring. Mom read it. Didn't read carefully. Just saw Son. And decided that was useful. Yes. Did you try to correct it? I did, he admitted. Once. Dad shut it down. Of course he did. He's nervous, Elena, Matteo said quietly. There have been questions. Some people remembered you. The timeline didn't make sense. So they created one. Yes. I let that sit. Matteo, I said carefully, if I come to the gala, will you stand there and pretend none of this happened? Silence. I watched you leave that night, he said finally. From the upstairs window. I know. I should have come down. Yes. Another pause. If you come, he said slowly, I won't stand against you. That's not what I asked. I won't contradict you. I closed my eyes briefly. Thank you. Elena. Yes. Whatever you're planning, just know it's going to be public. I know. And Dad won't handle that well. I'm not responsible for how he handles the truth. We ended the call. The gala was November 22nd. 10 days away. I printed the disinheritance letter. I printed the certified mail receipt. I requested a notarized statement from Mrs. Patel documenting the date and circumstances of my arrival at Daniel's aunt's apartment. I wasn't building a weapon. I was building clarity. Saturday evening, Gabriel came downstairs dressed in a navy blazer. Just testing options, he said. I studied him. He looked older than 17. Not hardened. Just aware. You don't have to do this, I told him. Yes, he said gently. I do. Why? Because they don't get to meet me for the first time as a prop. The words settled heavily in the room. And because, he added, I want them to see exactly what they tried to erase. I stepped closer to him. You understand this won't be quiet. I don't want it to be. I searched his face. No anger. No impulsiveness. Just resolve. Okay, I said softly. Sunday afternoon, my phone rang again. My father. I answered. Elena. Yes. We haven't received your response. You will. When? At the gala. Silence. That's not acceptable. It will have to be. We need confirmation of attendance. You'll see us. Another pause. Elena, he said carefully, this does not need to become dramatic. You made it dramatic in 2005. His voice cooled. If you come, I expect dignity. You should. He didn't respond. The line went dead. Gabriel stood in the doorway. That went well, he said dryly. I allowed myself a small smile. Reputation takes decades to build, I murmured. And seconds to destroy, he finished. I looked at him. No, I said quietly. Seconds to reveal. November 22nd was coming. They wanted their grandson. They wanted applause. They wanted confirmation that their version of history still held. They were about to discover that history doesn't disappear just because you refuse to look at it. Saturday, November 22nd, 2024. 6:12 p.m. The Waldorf Astoria glowed like it always had, gold-trimmed balconies, polished marble floors, chandeliers dripping light onto guests dressed in legacy and expectation. 400 invitations. Everyone curated. Gabriel stood beside me at the entrance, hands relaxed at his sides. Navy suit. No tie. His curls trimmed neatly. Calm. You okay? I asked quietly. He glanced at me. They've had 20 years to prepare, he said. We've had truth. I nodded once. We stepped inside. The ballroom was immaculate. Round tables draped in white linen. Tall floral arrangements in gold vases. A raised platform at the front of the room where a polished wooden podium stood beneath a banner reading 40 years of faith, family, and financial leadership. The irony almost felt theatrical. A camera crew was stationed near the stage. 2 operators. 1 wide-angle camera. 1 roving. A large monitor displayed the St. Bartholomew's live stream page, already active. Comments scrolling slowly. Guests held champagne flutes and whispered in clusters. It didn't take long. Heads began to turn. A murmur moved through the room like wind through tall grass. That's her. The daughter. I thought she moved to Europe. Is that the grandson? My mother saw us first. Her smile faltered mid-conversation. The champagne glass in her hand stilled. My father followed her gaze. He didn't freeze. He recalculated. That was always his strength. He finished his sentence to the mayor standing beside him before stepping away. Elena, he said evenly as we approached. You came. You said you expected dignity, I replied. We brought it. His eyes shifted to Gabriel. So this is him. This is Gabriel. Gabriel extended his hand. Good evening, Mr. Morales. My father hesitated for half a second before shaking it. Call me Javier, he said automatically. Gabriel didn't respond to that. My mother stepped forward. He's taller than I imagined, she murmured. You imagined a lot, Gabriel replied calmly. My father cleared his throat. We're about to begin the program, he said. You'll be seated at table 1. Of course we would. Front and center. Visible. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly. A soft instrumental version of some classical piece played through the speakers. Guests took their seats. Gabriel and I were placed directly beside my parents. Symbolism was not subtle in our family. The MC began with a polished introduction. Mentions of philanthropic achievements. Faith. Community leadership. Then my father took the stage. He looked composed. He always did. 40 years ago, he began, voice smooth and practiced. Lucinda and I committed not only to each other, but to building something meaningful. A legacy rooted in faith, family, and integrity. Integrity. The live stream comments scrolled faster now. He continued. Our children have been the foundation of that legacy. He gestured toward Matteo and Isabella, seated nearby. And tonight, he added, we are especially proud to formally introduce the next generation. A spotlight shifted. It landed on Gabriel. The room applauded. Polite. Expectant. My father extended a hand toward him. Gabriel Morales, he announced warmly. Our grandson. A brilliant young man with a promising future in engineering. Applause grew slightly louder. My father smiled. He believed he still controlled this. Gabriel rose slowly. He did not move toward the stage. Instead, he looked at me. I nodded once. He stepped forward, but not to stand beside my father. He walked directly up the steps to the podium. There was a flicker of surprise in my father's eyes. Gabriel accepted the microphone. Good evening, he began calmly. His voice carried clearly. Thank you for the introduction. A few polite chuckles. He continued. I'd like to clarify something before we go any further. The room quieted slightly. My grandparents have been telling many of you about me for months. A ripple of curiosity passed through the audience. My academic interests. My future plans. My accomplishments. He paused. The truth is, until 10 days ago, I had never met them. Silence. My father's posture stiffened. Gabriel didn't rush. They've described me as the next chapter in a proud family legacy. He looked directly at my father. I was not aware I was part of it. The applause had fully died. Guests leaned forward. 20 years ago, Gabriel continued, my mother was 15 years old and pregnant. The air in the room shifted. My father stepped closer, reaching slightly toward the microphone. Gabriel angled his body subtly away. That same night, he said steadily, she was asked to leave her home. Legal documents were drafted stating that the family bore no responsibility for her or any dependents thereof. A murmur broke out across the ballroom. My mother's face had gone pale. The live stream monitor showed comment lines accelerating rapidly. This evening, Gabriel said calmly, I was introduced as a symbol of legacy. He paused. But you cannot claim a legacy you attempted to erase. My father's voice cut in, strained but controlled. Gabriel, this isn't the time. When is the time? Gabriel asked evenly. The words echoed. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Matteo stood slowly from his table. He didn't interrupt. He simply stood. Witnessing. Gabriel continued. I am proud of who I am. Proud of the woman who raised me. Proud of the life she built without assistance from the people who now want to claim it. My heart pounded, not from fear. From clarity. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, Gabriel said calmly. I'm here because silence protects the wrong person. The room had gone still. Every eye fixed on the stage. And before I continue, he added, I think my mother deserves to speak for herself. He turned. Extended the microphone toward me. The spotlight shifted. 400 faces. One stage. One moment. And my father's words from years ago echoed in my mind. Reputation takes decades to build and seconds to destroy. I stood. And stepped toward the stage. The walk to the stage felt longer than it was. Not because of fear. Because of memory. For a moment, I saw myself at 15, standing on a Brooklyn sidewalk with a duffel bag and nowhere to go. Now I was walking across polished marble floors toward a podium under crystal chandeliers. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the live stream equipment. I took the microphone from Gabriel's hand. His fingers were steady. So were mine. Good evening, I said. My voice didn't shake. My name is Elena Sophia Morales. A murmur passed through the audience. For those of you who were told I moved to Spain 20 years ago, I didn't. I paused. On April 10, 2005, I told my parents I was pregnant at 15 years old. You could feel the tension settling across the tables like a weight. That same night, I was asked to leave our home. A soft gasp from somewhere near the center of the ballroom. My father had legal documents drafted 3 days later. I reached into my clutch and withdrew a folded copy. The paper was worn at the edges. This is a copy of the disinheritance letter sent to me by certified mail. The room stilled completely. It states that I forfeited all rights to the Morales estate and that the family bore no legal or moral obligation to me or any dependents thereof. I let the words linger. That dependent, I said, nodding toward Gabriel, was my unborn child. My father stepped closer. Elena, he said tightly, this is neither appropriate nor accurate in context. In what context, I asked calmly, does a 15-year-old become a liability? Silence. I held the document up toward the live stream camera. Close enough for the header to be visible. Certified mail. April 13, 2005. This is not about revenge, I continued evenly. If it were, I would have spoken years ago. My mother's composure had fractured. Her mascara traced faint lines beneath her eyes. For 20 years, I said, I built a life without this family's support. I completed my education. I started a firm. I raised my son. A few guests exchanged glances. Last spring, a business article mentioned that I had a son. I looked directly at my father. My parents interpreted that detail as an opportunity. The word landed deliberately. They began telling colleagues, church members, and clients about a grandson they had never met. A whisper rippled through the tables. They described his accomplishments. They described his ambitions. They described a relationship that did not exist. My father's jaw tightened. Gabriel was invited here tonight as a symbol. I lowered the document. But symbols do not have agency. My gaze swept the room. People do. The mayor shifted in his seat. A camera operator adjusted focus. I was offered $250,000 to attend this event, I said clearly. A collective intake of breath. To present a united family narrative. My father's voice cut in sharply. That is a mischaracterization. It is a number, I replied evenly. And I declined. I let that settle. I am not here to dismantle anyone's life, I continued calmly. I am here to correct a record. Matteo stepped forward onto the edge of the stage. He didn't take the microphone. He didn't interrupt. He simply said, clearly enough to carry, "She's telling the truth." The ballroom reacted audibly this time. Isabella stood too. "We watched her leave that night," she said quietly but firmly. "We didn't stop it." My mother covered her mouth. The live stream comments were scrolling too fast to read. I turned slightly toward my parents. "You had decades to acknowledge what happened." "We made mistakes," my mother said, her voice breaking. "You made a choice," I replied gently. My father looked smaller now. Not physically. Structurally. His certainty had cracked. "This event," I said, turning back to the audience, "is titled A Celebration of Faith, Family, and Integrity." The word hung in the air. Integrity means aligning public narrative with private truth. Silence. I am not contesting the estate. I am not seeking financial restitution. I am not asking for sympathy. I folded the document calmly. I am asking for accuracy. A stillness settled over the room. Gabriel stepped forward beside me. "I don't hate my grandparents," he said clearly. "But I will not participate in a story that erases my mother." A few guests lowered their eyes. "I am proud of who raised me," he continued. "And proud of the life she built without assistance." The ballroom doors opened slightly as someone slipped out. Then another. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Shifts. Recalculations. Reputation adjusting in real time. I handed the microphone back to my father. He accepted it reflexively. He looked out at 400 faces. Then at the livestream camera. Then at me. There are moments when a person must choose between narrative and truth. I watched him search for language. For spin. For reframing. He found none. "It was a difficult time," he said finally. Not an apology. Not a denial. Just a retreat. I stepped away from the podium. Gabriel followed. We walked down the steps together. The applause did not come. But neither did hostility. What filled the room instead was something more destabilizing. Awareness. As we reached the ballroom doors, my father's voice echoed faintly behind us, attempting to resume the program. But the energy had shifted irreversibly. Outside, the November air was cold and clean. Gabriel exhaled slowly. "Are you okay?" he asked. I looked up at the hotel facade glowing against the night sky. "Yes," I said quietly. For the first time in a long time. Behind us, the music resumed faintly inside the ballroom. But the performance had already ended. And the truth had already begun to circulate. What happens after a public correction isn't cinematic. It's administrative. By midnight, clips from the live stream had been extracted and reposted across social media. By morning, the video titled "Financial Executive's Daughter Corrects 20-Year Family Narrative at Anniversary Gala" had accumulated over 60,000 views. By Sunday afternoon, that number had doubled. I didn't monitor it obsessively. Gabriel did. 3 separate uploads, he reported calmly from the kitchen table. 2 commentary accounts. 1 legal ethics blog. I poured coffee. And people are asking questions. Of course they were. Monday morning, I received 3 emails from prospective clients who had seen the clip and then read the old business profile about me. One message read, "I want to work with someone who values transparency the way you do. Reputation does not disappear. It reallocates." By Tuesday, a short column appeared in the Manhattan Ledger. Morales Gala overshadowed by family disclosure. The article was restrained. Neutral. It avoided editorializing. But the comment section did not. Some were critical. Some supportive. Most were stunned. By Wednesday, St. Bartholomew's released a brief statement acknowledging internal family matters and emphasizing the church's commitment to compassion. My father's name quietly disappeared from the Board of Advisory Trustees on the website. Matteo texted me Thursday afternoon. Dad hasn't been back to the office since Saturday. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. I didn't intend harm. He replied quickly. You intended truth. That week, my phone rang with an unfamiliar Manhattan number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. Elena. My mother. Her voice was different. Less curated. I watched the clip again this morning, she said softly. I've watched it several times. I didn't interrupt. I didn't remember your face looking that young when you left, she continued. I remembered the argument. I didn't remember the fear. Silence. Why are you calling? I asked gently. I don't know how to apologize properly, she admitted. I don't know where to begin. That's honest, I said. Another pause. Your father is struggling, she added. He's not used to loss of control. I didn't do that to him, I replied evenly. Reality did. I know. Her voice trembled slightly. I heard Gabriel say he doesn't hate us. He doesn't. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I just wanted to hear your voice. 20 years. So many empty spaces where conversations could have existed. I'm not ready to reconcile, I said calmly. But I'm not unreachable. A quiet inhale. That's more grace than we gave you, she whispered. Yes, I agreed. We ended the call without promises. Without performance. Just truth. Thanksgiving arrived quietly. I hosted. Not because tradition demanded it. But because I wanted to. The dining table seated 10 comfortably. Gabriel at my right. Matteo and Isabella across from me. Mrs. Patel beside Gabriel, explaining the proper way to fold a napkin into a lotus. There was laughter. Awkward pauses. Careful rebuilding. No one pretended history hadn't happened. No one edited language to make it cleaner. Matteo raised a glass halfway through dinner. To honesty, he said simply. Gabriel clinked his glass against mine. To agency, he added. Later that night, after dishes were stacked and guests had left, Gabriel stood beside me at the kitchen window. You regret it? He asked. No. Not even a little? I thought about the stage. The spotlight. The moment my father realized he could not redirect the narrative. No, I said. He nodded. Good. He hesitated. I didn't do that for revenge. I know. I did it because I didn't want them telling my story without me. I looked at him. That's called ownership. He smiled slightly. I learned from you. Weeks passed. The attention tapered. The viral clips stopped circulating. Reputation stabilized, just not in the same configuration. My firm gained 3 new long-term clients by the end of the quarter. Not because of scandal. Because of clarity. My father has not called. My mother calls occasionally. Short conversations. No theatrics. Matteo and Isabella visit monthly now. Careful steps. Real conversations. No pretending. That's the difference. If you're still listening, let me say this clearly. 20 years ago, I believed being disowned meant being erased. I thought I had lost everything. I was wrong. I had resilience. I had people who opened doors when others closed them. I had the ability to build something independent of inherited approval. You do not need validation from those who withdrew it. You need stability within yourself. Setting a boundary is not cruelty. It is clarity. And clarity may feel disruptive to those who benefit from confusion. But disruption is not destruction. Sometimes it's correction. My parents wanted a grandson to reinforce a legacy. They forgot something essential. Legacy is not a photograph at a podium. It's the values you model when no one is watching. And if those values are inconsistent, the truth will surface eventually. Not dramatically. Not vindicatively. Just inevitably. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt minimized, rewritten, or quietly erased, subscribe to Women Reddit Stories right now. Because visibility matters. Truth matters. And everyone deserves to tell their own story. Not the version someone else finds convenient.